We in the TTRPG world live under the dominance of Dungeons and Dragons. Its power seems inescapable. But then so too did the Divine Right of Kings. Daggerheart was released in public playtest this week, and it looks good. I've run a couple of sessions with it, and while it's very early days, this could change the landscape of TTRPGs in some really interesting ways. Let's talk first impressions. What's it like to play? What's it like to run? Who's going to love it? Who is inevitably going to hate it? And what might it mean for the future? My name's Rich, and this is Renegade Rolls. So the quickest of summaries. Daggerheart is the new fantasy TTRPG from Darrington Press, otherwise known as the Critical Role folks. Yeah, these people. It went into public playtest on the 12th of March 2024. The core game mechanic, players roll 2d12s, one for hope, one for fear. Add the numbers together, plus any stat bonuses and situational modifiers, and meet or beat a target number set by the GM. Good things happen if the hope dice is higher, bad things happen if the fear dice is higher. If they're the same, it's a critical hit and you succeed spectacularly. If you've played any TTRPGs before, once you've got that system figured out, as a player you are pretty much off and running. The fabulous players at my table, as well as loving my GMing, of course, gave some really interesting feedback. One player who hadn't heard of Daggerheart at all before the session was one of its biggest converts. Suddenly it's his favourite TTRPG. He really liked the hope and fear system, though he thought that when you rolled with fear it meant the character was actually afraid. This might be a case of the language being just a bit too dramatic. The online character builder, links in the description below, is really well made and got us up and running, rolling dice within about 15 minutes. Combat was a highlight for my players as well. They appreciated the simplicity of the conditions, as well as when they cast a spell, there were no components needed, they just cast it and it was out there in the world, so they didn't have to keep track of that. That task, and lots of others actually, that fell to me as the GM. It was great to see players leaning into the story prompts and using the character generation to create links and connections with each other right from the beginning. In previous campaigns that I've run, it's actually taken weeks until the players have figured out why their party is all travelling together, and in Daggerheart this bore fruit in session 1, where a character leapt to the aid of another as they'd already agreed in their backstory that he owed that other character their life. From my side of the GM screen, I found it really seamless going between combat and regular adventuring. The lack of initiative, just saying to someone, hey, what do you do, is a really powerful way of keeping that kind of rising action going, and I can see myself ditching initiative entirely in D&D in future. I did feel there was a lot for me to keep track of in and out of combat. There's the action tracker, there's the fear points, as well as all of the usual stuff with monsters' attacks and abilities and things. We were playing online, so there were no physical tokens that the players could give me, and there doesn't seem to be an online tool or tracker that exists just yet, so I was using my little tally cards, which worked okay. These were fine, we got through the session, though I have some face-to-face games planned and I'm hoping the system of tokens and trackers will be much more intuitive in person. The biggest challenge for me is I had to improvise a lot when a roll with fear happened. Instead of a binary pass or fail, each dice roll actually has 5 different outcomes, so trying to figure those out ahead of time is really tricky. This needs some lightning fast, Matt Mercer-esque improv skills, or alternatively if there were cheat sheets, maybe by location or enemy type, which would give you some inspiration of complications to come up with on the fly. Where I'm able to ask for a perception check in D&D, and if a character rolls low, I can say, no, you just don't notice anything, and the adventure continues. If I want to ask for an instinct check in Daggerheart, I need to have that fail forward mechanic in mind, and this means I'm much less likely just to ask for one randomly. I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's definitely a change to how I'm used to running things, and unless some official material appears, I can see coming up with these consequences of failed rolls or rolls with fear being one of my main prep tasks before a session. That's maybe something that I've not had to do in other systems before. The learning curve for players is much less steep than for GMs, and if I was new to TTRPGs as a hobby in general and wanted to run games, Daggerheart would be a real baptism of fire for me. Not for the mechanics particularly, just for the improv that would be required for the different things that would happen for every roll. If you're a fan of Critical Role or any of the other channels that do actual play streams, and you enjoy that narrative heavy, story focused, character driven kind of campaign, I'm almost certain you'll get a lot from Daggerheart. So many parts of the game, from character creation to how combat works, even to how characters die, is really geared around allowing players to give their characters a sense of depth and to make them integral to a story, as well as creating some of that cohesiveness in an adventuring party, which, if it's there, can lead to some absolute magic at the table. If you're a GM who likes to run sandboxes and open world campaigns, then you're in the right place. If you like to improvise and narrate encounters rather than puzzling out a complex stat block, then you're definitely in the right place. I don't think any game should try and be all things to all people, and fortunately, I don't think Daggerheart even attempts that. If, as a player, you're a fan of mechanical depth and strategic combat, Daggerheart maybe isn't the game for you, at least not in its current state. As it stands, the potential for min-maxing and power gaming really isn't present. There are some interesting subclasses, and I'm sure people have already come out with some overpowered combinations, but I'd be really surprised if Daggerheart spawns anything like Adventurers League play, or any of that much more tactical combat style of gaming. Something I really like to see is the inclusion of safety tools and inclusivity within the actual core rulebook. This isn't even a setting-specific book, but it states that sign language is widely understood across cultures and communities. Also, there's a placeholder in the online rules for the combat wheelchair, which is fantastic to see. The decision to use cards for backgrounds, abilities and spells is a path less trodden from a game mechanics perspective, and it also has a strong business case. If I was Darrington Press, I'd be hoping to get every player to buy a set of those core cards. At the moment, the only people who spend money on D&D branded products are game masters, with a minority of players owning the player's handbook. Getting every player to buy a set of hopefully reasonably priced cards seems like a smart move, but I feel this might be a barrier to people just getting into the hobby who maybe don't know that their game master has got some spares for them. One criticism I've already seen of Daggerheart is that it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of game mechanics and systems taken from a whole load of other sources, but it doesn't stop it from executing those mechanics in a really slick way. When the iPhone first came out, there were people saying that, oh, this isn't original, this isn't new, but it was the combination of those elements in a super convenient form and packaged up nicely that meant it took over the world and shaped an entire industry. More recently and closer to home, Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't bring anything entirely new to the world of RPG computer games, other than amorous encounters with a bear, of course. But it packages everything together so well that it sold millions of copies and won a ton of awards worldwide. I see Daggerheart in a similar way. It's taken inspiration from a whole host of other systems, especially the Forged in the Dark and the Powered by the Apocalypse games, but it's added some of that big budget polish which might just make it a world beater. Some interesting questions which I don't know the answer to. Will Daggerheart dethrone D&D? Will it grow the TTRPG hobby as a whole, or just take a slice of that existing pie? Will the millions of people who watch Critical Role but haven't played D&D before choose to play Daggerheart instead? If those things happen, will it achieve that cultural breakout that D&D has enjoyed? A question I can answer. If Daggerheart doesn't take over the world, will it matter, as long as you and your friends are having fun playing games together? Nope. I'll see you in the next video, or at a table near you, rolling an improbable succession of ones, or rolling with fear, I suppose. Cheers.